identify as a word, but these kinds of forms, everyone kind of must be familiar, right? This is so in fact, I'm not even. Can you share how this happened, how this was written, and why it got kind of why it came into the world?
It's a standard. It came into the world because I was doing a piece for the Edinburgh Fringe on top of a garage roof where I fell off a ladder.
Mm-hmm. And this was a deliberate falling off a ladder?
It was a deliberate, yeah. And because of that, the person whose space it was said maybe it was for a performance called No Win, No Fee. And for it, the person who was had the space was talking about, oh, maybe I should get you to sign some kind of form, some kind of waiver. I said, yes, you should, and I will write it. So it's a standard form, but it's just like a kind of Google Translate from legalese across into every man, like you're trying to. Let's talk. So how you explain to your mate what it is.
Because I think the thing that really struck me when I was reading it, I had this sort of. It's a really interesting actually seeing you perform it because it's a very different delivery to how it was delivered in my head. But I like that. I really, really liked the...
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And in my head, I had this really sarcastic voice of this just sort of someone saying these words but not really kind of meaning them, or also someone who'd maybe just been kind of cornered into sort of writing this and just doing it it's like a very gestural sort of piece of writing in some ways, that it's not maybe...
It's very colloquial. It's done as though you were trying to explain something to a mate.
But also I wonder, because I always thought maybe it's that's a kind of personal projection, because I work with someone who, we have very, very different ideas about what health and safety means, and so there's this constant kind of negotiation of what is risky and what I want, these kind of promises that we make to each other, which are kind of quite casual, and then to have this very casual language, but in a very sort of potentially legally robust kind of piece of paper that could sort of stand up in court, and if anything did happen. So I kind of like this real sort of that sort of tension, and it makes me think about these everyday. These everyday, I don't know if they're really negotiations, they're more these kind of casual promises maybe that we make to each other, and then how we want this to then be sort of formalised in a way, just to sort of kind of cover things. I'm not sure. These are just sort of things I'm thinking.
I didn't want to read it. I know what you mean about it sounding sarcastic, but I wanted to read it like it was as everyone reads contracts.
Yeah.
I wanted to read it in that kind of, okay.
Yeah.
I can rent this, but I mustn't sleep here, and I've got to promise that I'm only going to do these things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got to use it for what I've said I'm going to do, and I'm not going to make pirate DVDs in it.
Yeah.
Or whatever those contracts are.
It's really good, but I think that's it. But I guess it's more just this idea of, how that we have different interpretations of what these words mean as well. Like for me, I sort of don't believe them, because I have these sort of personal experiences where I know people who are like, oh it's fine, it's safe, we'll kind of do it, and then actually, so it would be really interesting to kind of for people to read it individually and sort of what they might project onto their ideas, or their kind of systems of like individual systems of kind of health and safety almost. I don't know.
I quite like, we were talking about possibly doing it as a multiple. And I quite like the idea of doing it as a multiple. I quite like the idea of doing it as a multiple, like those ones where you can get a wheel and you just put in, and you can just download it.
Like a template. Yeah. Yeah, I find those really disturbing, but also really useful as
But
well.
also,
Yeah.
your point about then it becomes a legally binding document, so then I would have to have some other disclaimer back into it again about that it's actually an artwork and you
Yeah.
can't use it as a kind of...
Exactly,
as a
and then
guarantee.
with that disclaimer
And then it's
being,
that's becoming another part of the whole. There's another layer upon layer upon layer.
yeah.
So yeah.
Can I ask a question? When you read the real ones, the legalese ones, do they make you angry? Do they make you laugh? Or do you just ignore them?
I find it all fascinating, but I find all these kind of small prints. I did a piece that was a performative work, and I did it in the Sainsbury's Museum in, not the Sainsbury's. That was fantastic. That it wasn't a
Museum of Baked Beans.
It was the one in Norfolk or Norwich, in Norwich, and it is a great big, the Sainsbury's. And it was, what I did was whispered across the PA system all the disclaimers on psychic, a whole bunch of disclaimers on psychic websites. And they drift from really heavy legalese right up to things that say, you can't put a spell on me.
Wow.
Really bad. And but actually thinking, well, they obviously believe this stuff. They really do believe stuff. They've gone and got someone to actually just write some really watertight kind of disclaimer. Because what they're worried about is that people are going to invest. Rather than going to a doctor, they're going to go to a psychic website, or how they're going to invest all this money they've got. They're going to go to a psychic website, and then they're going to lose all that money, and then they're going to sue them. So there's all this stuff. So I whispered it out across, and it echoed through all the PAs. And the security guard, who was a bit tight, wouldn't let me see it because I was in his office. But there were all these people just walking down corridors with these whispered. It sounds really strange when you whisper. Amplified whisper is a really strange noise. And it just echoed around, so people were standing kind of going, wandering along corridors with this kind of whispered disclaimer, I promise that I'm not going to, So I think it's all fascinating. I love all this kind of risky. But that clash of the psychic and the kind of where it kind of meets in this kind of really difficult
beliefs and I guess it's also that thing of like it's a very sort of material kind of I don't know, it's like it's talking, but the concern was like your body in the performance, like if you were to fall off and you were to hurt something, or like all the things that kind of mentioned here as well. There are things that kind of feel quite like material things within the world, and then obviously and then to have something that like is beyond that can't quite be grasped.
It's like it's the other side to Nina's cynical kind of monetization of luck. So Nina at one end going, right, how can I make money from this? Yeah. So it's the same. It's that real kind of, it's that clash between kind of commerce and folklore.
Yeah. Well, look, I guess there's kind of a lot of anxiety. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety sort of just woven into these words as well, isn't it? Because it's all about what if this, and then if that happens, then who's responsible and who has to sort of take
your mum.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, also, do you? I don't know. Not to try and sort of thinking about it because your work in terms of it sort of like over the kind of various projects that you've been doing and sort of shifts that maybe are happening over time as well, whether there's like more of an urgency to address these things. Like do you feel these are becoming more present sort of every day?
I think it's what I work with every day, and so I think because it's part of my everyday life, all the fire exit stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's one right here. There's one here. Yeah, I can.
So there should be.
Just
quite right too.
Yeah, we got.
Directly out of the door. There's got to be one there.
We got told off earlier for putting a table in the fire exit.
Yeah,
so I thought you'd like that.
So I do a lot of it. But because I'm involved with that, I'm really interested in how those things, if you put them into other contexts. So I've done, these kind of business continuity plans for zombie apocalypses.
Amazing.
Okay? So this kind of just clashing those kind of those things that are absurd but really interesting. I think once you start trying to pick them apart, then it means that you can look at the systems themselves. I think is what's interesting. So I've done quite a lot of work that uses these fire exits symbols and things. And one of the reasons I find them so interesting, partly is because then curators have real problems with putting them into spaces. Because it contravenes their own fire rates over spaces. So then they have to work out whether they're going to just do this thing where they're going, oh yeah, but that's like an artwork. So I've done them where I've filled them with like hundreds of LEDs. So they're really bright, like kind of blindingly bright, like the kind of thing that you need on an oil tanker, so you can see it from the other end. That's where the fire is, right down there. Yeah, and then they put them in spaces, and they just kind of overwhelmingly, the whole thing's just lit by green light. It's really, but very difficult to play.
I was just thinking when you said that, I went to New York for the very first time on the way back from doing a commission earlier in the year, and I could not believe the amount of light that was emitted from all of the exit signs in any building that I was in.
Yeah.
It felt all out of proportion, and in a way that's what's so absolutely wonderful about this performance, because it is completely out of proportion, and yet the reason that it kind of ignites something in us all is because it is actually a parallel with everyday life, this everyday living that we all live this stuff, with the insurance companies of anything and everything. Anytime anything is activated, you experience this torrent of absurdity, because it does tip into that absurdity. And because there is no civil, so therefore there is all this pinning down of individual responsibility. Those are my thoughts. But one other thing was, in the performing of this, which is in the hand, in the envelope, could there not be something within infinite multiple that actually wasn't an object? It's not an object. It is something that is performed, and it's a one-off experience that is sort of delivered in a particular context. To maybe it's a bit like you're doing this for us now, just a small, intimate relationship, this opportunity to discuss this at this level. Could that not be the thing that becomes the infinite multiple? Is that not possible?
He'll send you an invoice.
You know what it is? Yes, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's one of those
Depends
things
what's
that we
discussed.
grapple with in terms of how performative works are documented and therefore hold a value post-performance, because they don't, you can't put them on a wall or stick them on a shelf.
So I would say that you wouldn't be able to create a performance again as a multiple that every time there's a different performance. So for me, it wouldn't be an infinite multiple.
No, you can, and there is a...
For me.
No, why not? There is a collective, and I'm trying to run in lane.
Yeah, I think
you did that.
There is, yeah.
You did do that and sold experiences and slightly more conceptual stuff. And his name was Alex. I can't remember his collective name.
Okay.
So it's done. It's fine. It's completely possible. Interesting.
Well, we talked about this idea of a digital download, which I thought was really interesting, because obviously that's, digital is a form where there can be sort of infinite sort of copies of this kind of mass kind of distribution kind of potential. And so, and I know you said you thought maybe this could be something that you sort of download. You kind of get a kind of link and you download it, and then you can print it out yourself.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with official documents, but I know
like
that you
those
can do it.
templates,
You can
yeah.
buy $10.
Yeah. But that's, yeah.
Have you tried any activity in the opposite direction? Kind of inserting legalese easily into parcel? I just think because as the language is changed from legalese to the colloquial, this kind of familiarity of anxiety comes up rather than it being a kind of legal protection from practical protection. It kind of steps into the realm of like anxiety into personal. My partner has terrible anxiety, and our current arrangement is when they have a particular anxiety about something, they text me what they need to be told. I tell them, and it alleviates the anxiety completely.
So he texts you, your partner texts you
Yeah.
what?
What they need to hear,
Right, okay.
because simply saying the right thing alleviates anxiety.
So you
But
say.
I have no idea what they need me to say.
Right, so you say it, and that's fantastic.
So that's
Have
the
you
thing
tried
with
to-
bureaucracy, this kind of bureaucracy, is the kind of intentional abstraction. It's kind of made to make you tune out to detail, and also kind of not fully understand elements of it. There's a certain sort of language to it that which is the opposite of what I'm saying. It's sort of built-in anxiety inducement to bureaucratic legalese.
And it's something that people they have to put in. It's like on a radio advert, radio ads for medicines, and there's that really fast bit.
Oh,
where
yeah.
you go, "Hey, Michael, diarrhea," and you go really fast,
Apply. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
high pitched because it's sped up.
Yeah, I love that bit. That's the best.
Those bits, they're the bits that I'm interested in. Those bits that you kind of have to say, but they don't really want to, but they kind of. And that kind of light grey or dark grey on light grey font at the bottom of websites where it says, "This is not confusing." You can say, "This is not confusing." But yeah.
Well, we had to, like even on the website, we had to do sort of a big old page after GDPR, which is an interesting one, isn't it? Where a lot of websites had to do terms and conditions and sort of what you can expect, and being very, very sort of this idea of like sort of transparency and sort of liability and all these things that are kind of permeating through.
Yeah, no, I
and
find
and each thing, like you can argue that this is a good thing and it protects people, but there's lots of people who can use this to who need it, and then there's there is also this kind of health and safety gone mad, this sort of let's just get back to kind of like common sense, but what does that actually mean? And then when also you start thinking about kind of institutions and individuals, and who is this designed for, and who wrote this, and where can it be?
Yeah.
Kind of what's the exchange that's happening, and then you start getting into kind of power and.
Yes, which is what I was trying to find. I was trying to find gagging orders a while ago. I was looking up gagging, trying to find a generic gagging order.
Yeah.
I couldn't find one because you can't.
They're all gagged.
Yeah, they were not allowed to
that's
pay
Is
loads
this
of
the same, Adrian? Is there a generic gagging order? Is this the same?
basic
So they're
gagging
like
order.
very...
Say
There must
nothing,
be.
or we'll find you.
Oh.
Very good.
And just to go on to this
Oh,
piece,
yeah.
I don't know, should we go
Yeah,
over there?
right, let's go
Have a
there.
look. I'm going to take my drink. Have you got...
Please come and have another pint of cider. I will pay you later.
Sorry.
Put your hand just on my shoulder.
And, I mean, I think everyone's doing this already, but chime in. It's really nice to hear people's thoughts and questions. So, this piece here, Adrian,
Yes, I'm listening.
Can you can you sort of introduce this and explain a little bit about its, again, where it's come from?
I can't remember the title. I also can't remember the title.
It's called Fire Signage Compliant.
Yeah.
Activity by MC Escher.
And
plus
orders.
one.
Yeah, plus orders, yeah.
Yes.
So, because we were just, how like this feels like a...
So this is all the required fire signage you need for this thing. So,
Has everyone had a look at this? Yeah. Oh, there's a cat.
oh, good.
Hello. That's a good distraction.
Is that good luck or bad luck? Because it crosses in that
Good
way.
luck. In my book, I've got 2 black cats, so it's good luck.
So there are 3 outsides. That's one.
Yeah.
That's another one, and that's another one. Because there are 3 planes. So it's about finding out which staircase and in which direction that plane has to go in order to get out of that space.
Yeah. Because these are the stickers that you've laid onto the print. That's right?
Yes.
Yeah? So you spent some time.
I spent some time working out where the signs had to go, and then I had to work out. Then I realised I had to work out the perspective for each sign so that it stayed true to the vanishing points of the signs themselves,
Yeah.
of the space itself.
So what I really love about this is that obvious. I mean, this is a kind of obvious thing to say, but there's a kind of disorientation in here, which I feel is really kind of like relevant to this, and architecturally as well. Architecturally with the text, you have these kind of sentences that so they start and then there's a full stop and then there's another one, and they kind of work kind of sort of almost like in silos. So that like one sentence, it states something, and that's an important thing to state, and that covers an aspect of something that somebody is going to be liable for. And so there's these kind of little sections.
Okay. Yes.
And for me, there's a really nice connection because you have the same thing, but sort of visually and architecturally going on, where you have these little sort of scenes or these little silos of kind of steps or a person in the step or a doorway, and then it's all kind of like jumbled into one and kind of but makes sense as a sort of slightly coherent thing, and I don't know, I kind of have the same feel to this as to that.
The Escher Foundation won't be happy with the term jumbled into one.
I'm just talking about how I'm feeling.
But yes.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I did. So what I did was produced these little stickers.
Mm. But I think what I mean is the jumbled, that's a feeling that you get when you can't make a sort of coherent direction through something. So this is a very deliberate. I mean, obviously Escher would have spent a long time figuring this out and crafting it, but it's a very deliberate disorientation because do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And in the same way that legal text can sometimes be used, not always, and I don't want to kind of service lots of people who actually do the opposite, working legally, and they want to make things very, very clear. And that's actually the purpose of a contract is that 2 parties agree, and so everyone has to be understanding and agreeing. So therefore, you have to lay things out kind of clearly, so people feel like they understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that's. And again, this is just a personal response that I'm articulating. But I do feel, like there's something, and maybe I don't know if that's something that kind of interests you in the work, or you're feeling jumbled now, aren't you?
There's this relationship between the non-rational and the totally, very, very rational, isn't there?
Yes.
Which is kind of a sort of circuit within your work generally, particularly related to this kind of world, and then within this artwork, it's really focused and very present.
It's kind of, yes, in a way you're absolutely right in that. That's so lovely. Yes, it's in a way it's trying to impose systems onto things, or picking apart the systems that are already in place. So I was kind of surprised that it was possible to actually work out the signage for it. I thought it would be impossible. I thought they would end up pointing it upwards and downwards on the same thing, and they don't. It does actually work in that there is a way that you can get out of all of it. It's
kind of reassuring.
It's right, yeah. So yeah, and that's kind of that is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Well, you tripped up on the stairs though.
Pardon?
You tripped up.
Well, if he tripped up on the stairs, and fell down them,
Yeah.
you don't want
If they're had a good handwork.
That's what's the fire warden saying for, right?
Who what?
The fire warden will help you out.
Yeah, well, I was trying to work out whether I should have 3 fire wardens. I was trying to work out whether each plane needed its own fire warden, but then I decided to just say, one fire warden is going to be him.
That's great.
So there we go.
What are you expecting in terms of cease and desists and whatever from the Escher Foundation?
I've never received any just way too small and unimportant for anyone so far to have bothered to do it. The only time it's ever come up was with ID magazine, who did a load of stuff. I used to work with a shop called Pioneer Lion. I did a load of actual fake, well not fake, similar versions of Louis Vuitton bags with stencils on, stencil writing, and ID used them in a whole load of shops, and then said we can't use them, and they were really straight, and they said we can't use them because our advertisers really will. So they used the picture. They didn't use the pictures, but they did. So that's the only time it's ever really come up. The face, just before the face closed, they used a whole load of stuff of mine because they were because at that point I was using a lot of brands because we're closing, we're going out, we don't care. And the last 2 episodes of the face just were full of stuff that we're going, we're going to do. So it's never happened. It's never come up. If it happens, you go, I'm sorry. But actually, I don't know if you can because it's just a bought stock print with something applied to it.
It's one you bought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're stock prints with with another layer of stuff on it.
Yeah.
So actually, I think and hey,
that's
just a whole nother piece of artwork. when they start, we'll see. But I don't know how. I don't think they would be. I don't think they'd be interested. It's just.
I was just wondering, sorry, because you were talking about legal contracts law before, so whether you kind of looked at it as regards this piece in particular, but no.
No. What I tend to do is just do it. John might look at it. John might.
Put a bit together, shall we?
But I don't think so. I think if it's a stock, if it's a bought poster, which I've then worked, essentially, and collaged,
Because you talk a bit about how it's important that it's stickers on top, and that you're individually applying those stickers rather, because you could have, I don't know, photoshopped it and then
I could have photoshopped it and then just printed it.
Yeah.
And that would be so much simpler.
So what's the why this way?
I don't know. I've been trying to work out why this way, but actually, I do quite like the fact that they are because this is what fire signs are supposed to be made out of. This is the correct material. And then I quite like the idea that I have to then cut them out and put them in the right place. And I like the fact that that is literally another level, another layer of stuff on top of it.
I have a question. How do you know where the right place is? Is there a right place?
Yeah, well, the
Or
right
an
place is,
or a fire exit sign?
I mean,
Or an
Do you
exit
mean
sign?
legally? As in
I I mean,
necessarily.
like, is this really representing what would happen in real life?
Yeah.
Like, if
Where
there-
you'd have to place it.
yeah,
in a
like, does
building.
it have to be 3/4 of the way up, or does it have to be like an average person is 5'7", so it has to be at eye level?
You have to be
or-
able to see it. So it has to
Who
be.
has to be able to see it?
Well, that's why that one's above the door.
Right.
So everyone
Everyone can see it. Okay,
Yeah.
but yours aren't. Yours
Yeah,
is
but
to the side.
for the most part, they are above the doors.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are on, so they're relatively high up,
Yeah.
and they will be at a place where you're able to get to them.
Okay. It's like what felt right to you, or it was not, or it was something. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen enough of these to know.
I've seen a lot of them,
Right.
and I've looked into them, and I actually looked into producing my own for a while as well,
Oh.
and what you needed, because I didn't like I thought it all seemed a bit standard. I thought, hey,
There's room for.
you know, it's a bit Western, these doors. There's a whole load of doors out there. So I did a whole load with loads of different kind of doors, but they just had to have that green. So again, it's one of those things that the people you buy fire signs from like the idea that there's a standard fire sign,
Yeah, because
but
you can't get it wrong.
actually,
Because you can't get it wrong.
yeah, but actually there's not really a standard fire sign. They've kind of just there's convention.
Right.
And a lot of these things become convention rather than that.
Right.
It has to be this big, it has to have this kind of little running man on it.
But it doesn't.
Doesn't necessarily, it doesn't have to necessarily have that little running man, but that's the one that everyone's gone for. And it's got to be the one that's clearest
Right.
and easiest to see.
Right.
So a lot of it does come down to common sense. If you get a fire officer, and you talk to fire officers and they've seen things on fire, they just go, just do what you can.
Don't get
They-
creative.
Yeah,
Just.
yeah, but also they recognise that buildings aren't necessarily going to work like that. You know, if you've got an old building, it's not, and that's the lift it's got,
Right.
then it
right.
won't be fire compliant, and it can't be fire compliant, and so they kind of start. I spend a lot of my time talking to fire.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So actually, yeah.
And we're only talking about convention in terms of one country.
Yes.
So I work at the National Gallery
Mm.
there, and most people think that, oh, exit, that's the exit sign.
Yeah.
And it's not the exit sign, it's a thing that's cordoned off.
Yeah.
You know,
And in hospitals,
they get lost. you know.
yeah, and in hospitals they don't have anything. They don't use English terms at all. It's just symbols. Because then you're immediately getting
No words at all. No
Yeah,
letters
English
or words.
which obviously
Sure.
doesn't make sense. So arrows, doors,
Right.
flames,
Running man.
yeah,
Right.
and fire.
Right.
Pictures of
right.
fire. So yeah.
But are you looking for a way out of the maze of your life? Is that what it's about?
No, I don't think so.
That's fine.
No, I think
Is
it's.
this more like comedy, or are you trying to build users to make it kind of like?
I think there's
or something like that?
there's perhaps a humorous element to it. I think that's nice. And that's good. But yeah, I mean, there's to a greater or lesser degree.
It's a form of satire, isn't it? Kind of satire.
And questioning and looking at things and stepping back from stuff and saying, well, why is that planet like that? What does that mean? What is this mean? What is all this stuff for? Yeah. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. All these stuff that gets overlooked because you don't really listen to that. Except that sometimes you go, oh, like now.
But it holds so much kind of cultural history as well. That kind of level of bureaucracy. It's quite, and going back to kind of being specific to British culture. And
Oh, God.
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I wasn't the first to make this link, but to a kind of colonial past actually, that kind of bureaucratic contractual language is kind of very at the heart of Britain's colonial past. But it's kind of worked a way to legally wrestle land from people. You know, if
it's in a contract and you think that you understand it, that kind of exchange is okay. Yeah, that seems fair. And then, but then the idea of small print
Contract.
in a contract is has such a kind of huge kind of cultural baggage with it, and it's very present now.
And it comes back to what you were saying before about your unwritten contract with your friend about what you won't do something and then you weren't supposed to have done that. Absolutely. And I think it is very rooted in. There's a lot of cultural.
Well, it shapes the culture, and it take for granted. These things are in place, and they're a little bit absurd, but one culture is different to another. But it's those kind of health and safety things we are a bit obsessed with in this country. It's become quite.
And the standardisation of that. Understand how these things become standard somewhere and then that spreads out around both sides and all that. Yeah.
Where do you stand vis-a-vis this whole kind of the emergence of this whole post-truth rhetoric that's appeared, over the past, whether it's Trump or before? Do you feel that kind of the world is kind of catching up to your mindset and articulating the kind of corruption of language and imagery that we're seeing everywhere, and the doubt about what is truth and how can you make a concrete statement? Because in a way, it seems to me your work is very much articulating that dichotomy. And I presume, I'm not familiar with your practice, but I presume you've been doing this for a while. But in a way, it strikes me that this has become very much an emergent question for all of us. How as an artist do you find that kind of everyone engaging with your anxiety?
It's I think a lot of artists have this thing that they're kind of looking at the world that surrounds them, working around it. I've always been interested I've done a lot of work with marketing and advertising and all those kind of things as well, and it's surprising how far into kind of satire and kind of really questionable ideas we can get, and it doesn't take very long for the real world. Okay, so I do a lot of stuff I used to do an awful lot of stuff with cigarette marketing. I mean, in a way, cigarette marketing is really interesting because it's, in a way, the kind of purest kind of marketing, because it doesn't have anything to back it up other than buy our cigarettes. They're the best cigarettes. You've got nothing. You can't add anything other than, it's toasted. Really doesn't wash anymore as far as cigarettes. So it's just there's some cigarettes. Buy these ones. They're cooler than the other ones. But then you can you don't have to go very far down the road before actual marketing of stuff catches up. The whole vaping. But yeah, that kind of.
But it's like people, I read a lot about post-truth, and I don't remember reading about people discussing post-truth, sort of 5-10 years ago. And it's kind of absurd to think there is post-truth because there never was truth in the first place. So it is an absurdity that people worry about.
Lies.
Yeah.
But you did have before post-truth Adam Curtis trying to figure out what an actual truth is or was in a hyper-normalisation, things like that.
Maybe it's post-truth in terms of we don't think that there is such a thing, that we have suddenly realised that there never has been and that it's always been
It's showing
created.
how dodgy the notion of a truth is, or a source of truth is. So it's pointing back in that direction.
And reliable sources, reliable information.
Yes, it's confusing the two things, information and notions of truth, which has always been rather ambivalent. That's a separate set of issues. Because you can go back to Roland Barthes, can't you? Looking at exactly the same sort of thing in the 50s.
I think we're going to have to sort of wrap up, but you're very welcome to stay. I think maybe we have the room for another 10 minutes.
I don't know what time it is.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
Okay, so yeah, apparently we have to get out at 10, so
Yeah.
you can go downstairs and keep chatting, or maybe I'll let us stay in here. Who knows?
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming. I don't know, John, if you want to say any final words before.
I think we've had plenty of words.
Okay, great.